Airframe Ultra might be the best indie racing game I've ever played. Okay, look, I know in one of my last videos I kinda teased that I'd be covering Void Stranger next, but listen, this game appeared out of nowhere and I just had to cover it. But no worries, the Void Stranger video is still coming, but since I plan on that video being like 30 minutes to an hour long, it's definitely going to take me a bit longer than usual to get that video out. So for now, here's Airframe Ultra. Developed by Video Cult, the legendary developers behind Rain World, Airframe Ultra is a retro PvP racing game that feels like it ripped right from the PS1 era of games, with the controls, graphics, and just overall vibe of the game only helping to push that feeling even more. Okay, but in all honesty, my plan for this game was to originally cover it in a YouTube short, similar to how I covered Adana and Silver Palace. But after spending nearly 2.5 hours playing this game with my brother, I just knew I had to give this game its own video. So let's go through just about everything there is in Airframe Ultra so you can understand just what makes this game so surprisingly good. Starting with the... Alright, so earlier I mentioned that Airframe Ultra is a PvP racing game, and while yeah, that certainly is the case, this game is so much more than that. Because while you could spend all your time with this game doing nothing but racing, there's so much more you could do in this game. But first, let's get the major one out of the way, the racing aspect. So in terms of racing, Airframe Ultra is a game that at first glance could be easily comparable to Mario Kart, since in both games you race on maps against other people, all the while avoiding hazards and picking up items so you can finish first. But that's just about where the comparisons end. Because while yeah, it would be easy to gloss over the racing aspect of the game, I haven't even mentioned that the community has already found ways to break the game, allowing them to not only wall ride for short durations on maps like Ocean Drive, but also do funny stuff like going out of bounds. And while not every little game-breaking thing in the game is beneficial, to the ones that are, man, do they make the game all the more fun to play. But of course, it wouldn't be a proper racing game if you didn't have multiple vehicles to choose from. And luckily, Airframe Ultra provides the player with a handful of vehicles to pick from, like the Cruiser, which is the heaviest vehicle in the game, the Hopper, which is the lightest, and of course the Blunt Nose, which is sort of like the medium-weighted vehicle. But while all these vehicles are great, there is a fourth option, the Vector, which the game basically describes as a modified Blunt Nose that is very much a high-risk, high-reward vehicle, easily making it the best but also the trickiest vehicle to use. But besides the racing aspect of the game, there's one more side of the gameplay that I have yet to bring up, the... Now you're probably confused as to why I'm giving the combat of all things its own segment, but it's honestly because the combat in Airframe Ultra is by far the most in-depth combat system I've ever seen for a racing game. Because while you have your standard weaponry like a stun baton, blaster, and traffic sign, you also have melee weapons like the crowbar, which can parry almost every other melee weapon's attack, with the added benefit of disarming them, and even other melee weapons like the chain, which you can use to not only whip people, but also use to ensnare someone, removing their ability to do pretty much anything besides basic movements. Now, I'm not going to go over every weapon in the game and their hidden quirks, because that would take forever, but just from this small glance, you can already see why I consider this game's combat to be so in-depth, because not only does each weapon feel like it has a hidden side to it, but the way each weapon interacts with each other as well is just really cool, and feels like it was a lot more thought out than it had any right to be. But at the end of the day, it really feels like the devs just wanted players to experiment and seek out their own enjoyment with the game. Whether that be through fighting while on a vehicle or during a race, or even through just fighting off vehicles in a sort of Dark Souls deathmatch type way, it really feels like the devs handed the car keys of the game to the player and said, go nuts, allowing the player to find their own sense of enjoyment and fun through whatever means they saw fit. However, I would be lying if I said this game was completely perfect. So let's talk about the games. Now, this is honestly a small gripe, but I find the controls, at least as far as controlling the actual player goes, to be rather awkward. Because while you have your basic movements of walking, rolling, crouching, and attacking, running is just kind of weird. because instead of just holding down a button to run, you have to instead repeatedly mash a button in order to run, which in my time playing made the controls feel like I was playing a Bennett Foddy game. Although I will admit that the controls only felt awkward during the first hour or so of my playtime, as I slowly got used to it after walking around without my vehicle for so long. But besides the controls being a little jank and reminiscent of Rain World, Video Cult's other game, I found the VHS filter that the game uses to be a bit distracting. Now, if you couldn't tell already from my gameplay, the bitrate of the video is kinda, well, bad at times. And that's all because of the VHS filter that the game uses. Now, I'm all for putting stuff like this into games. Hell, I actually enjoy the filter that Signalis uses because it works pretty well with the game. But in Airframe Ultra, the filter becomes kind of detrimental at times, because while the filter does make the game look pretty good in well-lit areas, it also makes traversing through dimly lit areas to be a bit of a pain, as it can be rather hard to tell just what exactly you're looking at. Luckily though, it seems that the VHS filter is gone in all updated versions of the game, since I've yet to see it appear in any footage pertaining to version 3, so I'm at least happy that it's gone to some degree. But oh right, my bad, I completely forgot to bring that up. Well, since I just brought it up, let's talk about... Now, something I forgot to mention at the start of this video was the different versions of Airframe Ultra that are available. See, the current demo of the game on Steam runs off of the 0.163 build of the game, but some of the footage I've been showing to you over the course of this video that isn't mine is from version 3 of the game, and this is because I don't have access to version 3 of Airframe Ultra. You see, what the devs do every now and again is hold a public beta for the game, but from what I can tell, you're only able to get access to it if you sign up for it. And unfortunately for me, I discovered Airframe Ultra about 3 days after the public beta signups for the game closed, meaning I was unfortunately stuck with playing the 0.163 build of the game on Steam. Luckily though, a few people in the Airframe Ultra Discord were able to help me out and allow me to use their footage for this video. So a huge thanks goes out to Floof, Overpowered Pizza, and ThingAMagic for helping me make this video possible. But now that that's all cleared up, I think it's finally time we wrap this up with my... So after all is said and done, do I think you should play Airframe Ultra? Of course I do, because Airframe Ultra is a fantastic game that genuinely took me by surprise. Since like I said at the start of this video, I only ever meant to cover this game for a YouTube short, but after spending 2.5 hours playing with my brother, this game genuinely piqued my interest enough to the point where I decided to make a whole video dedicated to covering it. And don't worry, I definitely plan on returning to this game in the future once the full game releases. And who knows? I might just drag a few friends along with me for the ride. But down in the description, I've left a link to not only the game's Steam page, but to the Discord and developers' Twitter page as well. That way you can stay in the loop as new updates and betas become public. But feel free to do the generic YouTuber stuff of liking and subscribing, and feel free to leave a suggestion of what game I should cover next down in the comments. But alright, I'll see you later. Bye!